A childhood in the midst of bombs. When you think of childhood, what comes to mind? Afternoons chasing the wind across open fields. The buzz of cicadas in a blazing summer. The warmth of your parents' arms and the echo of laughter in your backyard. For many, childhood is a vibrant painting colored with innocence and joy, but for those of us born during the war, that painting was torn apart by smoke and fire, by the rumble of explosions overhead, by the flashing sky lit up with sudden airstrikes. Our childhood wasn't about games, it was about survival. It wasn't about laughter, it was about muffled sobs in dark underground shelters. Not about warm blankets, but the cold earth beneath our backs. I still remember the first time I heard the air raid siren. It was a late afternoon in 1972, one of the most brutal years of the war. I was only 7, barely able to recite the alphabet. The siren blared, long and eerie, slicing through the air like a blade. Our entire village erupted into panic. Adults dropped their tools, children abandoned their games, and everyone sprinted toward the bomb shelters, the only place we might be safe, even if only barely in the north, especially in cities like Hanoi, Haiphong, Thanh Nguyen, and Vinh. These scenes became routine. American planes, especially the massive B-52s, rained down thousands of tons of bombs during Operation Linebacker 2. We kids called them iron birds, giant flying monsters that we never saw, only heard. A deep, distant thunder filled the sky. Then, the earth would tremble with each explosion. I remember curling into my mother's lap in the damp shelter underground. The scent of soil filled my nose, the only light came from a flickering oil lamp. Sometimes, we sat in silence for hours, barely breathing. Any noise could be fatal. I didn't fully understand death back then, but I knew that one wrong move, one unlucky moment, and we could all vanish in the blink of an eye. Running through fire and smoke, there were nights when we couldn't even sleep at home. Nighttime bombing raids were common. The sirens would scream, and we'd gather what we could, some dried rice cakes, cold rice wrapped in banana leaves, and flee into the dark. We huddled in trenches dug at the village edge, each person with a thin mat, children pressed against each other for warmth, adults sitting wordlessly in the dark. One night, the American planes bombed along the Red River. The sky turned red as fire lit up the horizon. The blasts echoed through our shelter like the world was ending. We children lay there, eyes wide, staring at the earth ceiling above us, afraid it would collapse. Some kids cried. Others went completely silent. I remember my mother holding me so tightly her hands trembled. Her lips moved in prayer. Above ground, houses were burning. Trees splintered. Down here, time seemed frozen. The next morning, when we returned, the path home had changed. Uncle Tu's house was gone, just ash and the smell of smoke. His dog circled the ruins, howling. Some people cried. Others just stood there, numb. I didn't know whether I was more afraid or more angry. I only knew one thing: my childhood had changed forever. Sleeping in darkness, the bomb shelters became our bedrooms for most of that summer. Cold earth, thin blankets, the choking smoke from oil lamps, none of it could lull us into real sleep. I often jolted awake to the sound of sirens, grabbing my little sister's hand as we ran. Some nights we hadn't even finished our sleep before having to run again. Once, my mother forgot to take the pot of rice off the stove. When we returned, there was nothing left but a pile of ash and a twisted, blackened pan. Ty, my friend, once got caught in a collapsed bunker during a bombing raid. He survived, but he stopped speaking afterward. His eyes always stared into the distance, as if seeing something the rest of us couldn't. He began screaming in his sleep. The adults said he had bomb shock. I didn't fully understand what that meant, but I knew this: his smile was gone. Like a piece of childhood had been ripped away. The siren was our school bell. In peaceful times, children wake up to the sound of school bells. For us, the siren was our bell, the alarm to run. It rang any time, during dinner, while we were studying, in the middle of the night. That wailing sound became a part of us. Every time it echoed, our hearts froze. during the fiery nights in Hanoi, we didn't dream of fairy tales or superheroes that we just wished for one peaceful night's sleep, no sirens, no running, no fear of losing our parents. War's pain wasn't only for adults, adults could understand sacrifice. They knew why bombs fell. But children, we didn't. We didn't understand why we had to run, why our homes were destroyed, or why our friends disappeared overnight. We only knew that everything had changed, and nothing could bring back what was lost. We lost more than homes. We lost moments, tiny things others take for granted. A quiet evening at home. A bedtime story. A warm meal with everyone safe around the table. These weren't luxuries. But in war, they became rare treasures. Then one day, peace arrived. I still remember April 1975. People embraced in tears, shouting with joy. I saw my father cry for the first time. No more sirens. No more bombs. No more iron birds overhead. We ran across the fields again, but this time to play, not to flee. The sky was finally ours, but something inside us had changed. A part of our childhood was gone, forever lost in the smoke and rubble. Even now, when I see my child sleep peacefully under a warm blanket, I remember those freezing nights underground, the roar of bombs, the distant gaze in my friend's eyes. What we lost, what remains, some memories never fade. Even now, decades later, I sometimes wake in the middle of the night to complete silence, and for a fleeting second, I expect to hear the siren again. My body tenses. My ears strain. Only then do I remember, the war is over. I'm safe. My children are safe, but I also know that not every child was as lucky as me. I remember Lon, the girl who used to sit next to me in class. She always carried a red hair clip and had a quiet voice. One day, her house was hit. She didn't come back. The next week, her desk was still there, empty, silent, untouched. None of us dared ask the teacher. We all knew what had happened. She became one of those names no one says out loud. But everyone remembers, and what of the children who survived physically but were never the same? Those who flinched at loud noises for years, who struggled to sleep in silence, who could never find joy in fireworks or New Year's drums again. War doesn't end with peace treaties. It lives on, in scars, in memories, in the hollow places left by those who never returned. For children, it's not just the loss of loved ones, it's the theft of innocence, of imagination, of simple joys like chasing dragonflies in the sun. The quiet price of peace. After the war ended, life slowly returned. The markets opened again. Schools reopened. Laughter returned to the villages, cautious at first. Then stronger each year. But beneath that laughter was something quieter, a shared understanding, a memory we all carried but rarely spoke of. I remember the day my daughter came home from school crying. She had lost her pencil. Just a simple, everyday problem. But I looked at her tear-streaked face, and I smiled, not because she was sad, but because she could be sad over something so small. That was a gift we didn't have. To be a child, and only a child, with no fear of sirens, of death, of losing everything overnight, that, I realized, is what peace really means, not just the silence of guns, but the freedom to live fully, fearlessly, and innocently. Telling the story, for years, I stayed silent about the war. Maybe it was too painful. Maybe I thought no one would understand. But as I've grown older, I've come to see how important it is to remember, not with bitterness, but with honesty, because somewhere in the world right now, there are children living through what we lived. Different countries. Different flags. Same sirens. Same fear. Same dreams buried in the rubble, and maybe, just maybe, if more people knew what war steals from a child, they'd think twice before starting one. A message to the future, to the children born in peace: cherish it. Cherish your mornings filled with sunshine. Not smoke. Cherish your bedtime stories, your noisy classrooms, your lazy Sundays. Know that these are not small things. They are treasures, bought by those who lived through darker days. To those who still carry the past, your pain is valid. Your silence is understood. But when you're ready, speak. Tell your stories. Because the world needs to know not just what happened, but what it felt like. What it cost, and to those who lead, who decide between war and peace, remember that every bomb dropped isn't just a strategic move, it's a childhood shattered, a memory scorched, a future rewritten, a final thought. I don't remember all the dates. I don't remember the names of every village we ran through. Or the number of nights we slept underground. But I remember the sound of my mother's breath in the dark. I remember the smell of wet earth. I remember the silence when the bombing stopped, and the long, slow return of hope, and I remember that childhood isn't measured in years, but in moments. Ours were different. Harder. Quieter. But still ours, and in remembering, we honor not just what we lost, but what we survived.